Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Kol Loyim La, Adonai Yahweh, Bashem Shamalak Yahushai, Bashem Kakadash. Sabah to the apostles and elders, Millstone, peace, citation, hope for elect, Shalom. And the title of the video is going to be the age of consent in the Bible. So, a lot of people need to understand that when it's coming to the age of consent, it pretty much was the time when you had like the availability to basically produce as a guy. If you was to produce like, sperm in that time, or as a female once you have your period, that was pretty much like the age of consent at that time. And I already went into other videos, like pretty much when you biologically become a man, it's pretty much at the age that you start, producing sperm. And as a female, when you biologically become a woman, that's at the age that you start having your period. And that's pretty much the same age where you're going to be producing your eggs. So it's like the average age will be like around 12. So everybody's different because, puberty hits everyone differently. So then it says right here, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 36, but if any man think that he behaveth himself uncomely toward his virgin, if she pass the flower of her age, and need so require, let him do what he will. He sinneth not, let them marry. Exactly. So pretty much, there wasn't no specific age for marriage, but marriage was at a young age, though, the age of consent was way younger than Esau's age of consent law, and even other countries, they have different age of consent laws. And this country has like a higher age of consent law. Some states will say 17, some states will say 16. But pretty much, like I said, through the Bible, I showed evidence that, these are the things that we're going to basically do in the kingdom. Like, marrying women at the age when they have their periods and stuff like that. So, I'm going to show more evidence too. I'm not only going to show that scripture. So, it says like the minimum age for like marriage for men. In the Bible, it pretty much was like, Joash was a 7-year-old king. And when you see Joash, like, he had, he had 2 wives. And he pretty much begat sons and daughters. So he had early puberty, And when you was young in those times, you would usually have like a lot of, Alright, so calling out Bashima shot 1044. Alright, so basically, like, during those times when people were this young, sometimes, like, if there was a man, there would be a king, usually at the age of, like, young ages during these times, because this was, like, the time of our rulership. So, in these times, it was safe to practice the law, even though we didn't fully keep it because we went off, because we wasn't really in the, in the right spirit, basically. Like, we need spiritual bodies, to keep the law, statute, commandments to the full extent. So, yeah. But I'll do other videos regarding, like, the law of the marriage and the law of divorce as well. But right now, I'm just showing, like, examples of basically, like, of young marriages that happen in the Bible. Esau will look at this and he will say that, oh, this is a problem in this time, in this community, wherever Esau's ruling, they will have a problem with shit like this. But it's like, if you have a problem with shit like this, and you don't have a problem with people changing their genders and getting sex reassignment surgery at a fucking young ass age, at like the age of 8, you know, then you must have something really wrong with you. But yet they want to demonize something like this. And you know, I used to be, when I was what you call a certain age, I would always think that, like, at least maybe dating a female maybe around like maybe 16 or 15, it wasn't really bad. But like, you know, obviously I wouldn't look forward to doing it, but like in the kingdom, our minds are going to be changed and everything's going to be different from there. So let me show you the proof of like with King David and Abishag. Like, I'll show you that story real quick. And here's the video. Most likely, here's the what you call it, article about this. So King David was 70 years old at the time. They said the girl they bring over is Abishag. It is said that Abishag became a wife. Others say she was a concubine, but pretty much like she was a Shunammite. And usually if you're of another nation and you was to get with an Israelite man at that time, you'd be considered as a concubine. So from what it seems like, she's not an Israelite. So, but I'm not really too sure about like I don't really know too much about like that much of the history of King David and his woman. But for the most part, these are just evidences showing that how biblical prophets in that time, how they married like young women. So I'll see if I can find more evidence. So right here it tells you that the Bible doesn't really specify any particular age requirement for a person to be married. Rather, it speaks in general terms of marriage being for those who are grown up. And it says both the language and culture of the Bible strongly support the idea that puberty at bare minimum is a condition that must be met before becoming someone's spouse. So you see, somebody that wrote this article pretty much was saying what I was saying, honestly. And it says this fits with one of the historical purposes of marriage, conceiving and rearing children. I think he meant bearing, not rearing. Scriptural evidence indicates that those too young for childbearing are not candidates for marriage. Though there is no explicit age given in the Bible, it is reasonable to look at the practices of ancient Judaism for cultural considerations on the proper age for marriage. See, here this is where they got wrong because, this was an Israelite culture, not no damn Judaism. This is not no Jewish thing. Just so y'all know. Because if it was, after all, look at the Jewish people over there in Israel and look at them over here as well. Those Amalekites, they don't follow the laws. They're not following 613 laws and commandments, and this is their kingdom, and they're not following the laws in the Bible. So that goes to show you they're not the true people of the Heavenly Father. And it says, according to tradition, boys were not considered men, therefore not marriageable until the age of 13. Girls were not considered women until the age of 12. These ages more or less correspond to the onset of puberty. Let me see. It says in the New Testament has even less to say about the age of getting married. Still, there are clues in the New Testament Greek similar to those in the Hebrew. For example, 1 Corinthians 7:36 uses the word hyperkamos in reference to a female. In this case, it's a young woman who's engaged to be married. Hyperkamos is translated as past her youth, past the flower of her age, or past marriageable age. The word literally means ripe, a common euphemism in many cultures for describing a woman's capability of bearing children. Paul's inclusion of the word definitely indicates that the marriageable age was sometime after puberty. When a woman is fully grown, but scripture nowhere sets a definitive marriageable age, physical maturity is a must. But when a girl reaches maturity can vary. The 12-year-old in Mark 5:41 to 42 is still a little girl and obviously not ready for marriage. Yeah, because like I was saying, like, when it's come to puberty, puberty hits people differently. So if she had a period at that age, then she'll be ready for marriage. But some people may hit puberty late, some people hit it earlier than others. And puberty is like it's a transition to your adulthood. And when you're able to pretty much bear children, you will be considered as an adult. You know. Now, if you was barren, I mean, I don't know about that. Because usually back in the Bible, a lot of women, they will pretty much be feeling ashamed if they didn't have the ability, if they weren't capable enough to have kids. You know, they'll be loving to have children at that time, because that was such a womanly thing to do. And in these end times, it's gonna come right back to that. You know, while now when you look at these modern day women, right, which are completely bitches for the most part, many of them, they don't even fucking like to have kids. You know, and they're not tenderhearted amongst their kids, and that's the curses in Deuteronomy 28. You know, and then when you look at, like, a lot of these women, another good point I want to mention is that when you look at a female pretty much like in middle school or whatever, that's going to be the age where she's going to basically be thinking about, dating, going to be thinking about, like, um you know let's say sexual things, and even a guy too. So they may even watch some films about it, or read maybe some comic books. So I mean, well, that, or they may read some magazines, knowing how boys are in general, because everyone usually has their time of doing certain things, and then it's like, when you look at a lot of these females, many of them, by the time they reach high school, in the fucking first year of high school, which is like freshman year, ninth grade, some of them lost their virginity. Some of them even lost it in 8th grade in middle school, or 7th grade, you know? And this is something that Esau is so much of a fucking demon. He actually promotes you to be adulterous. And, there's no problem with you, like, let's say, losing your virginity, but it's like, as long as you're staying with that one person, you know, for most of your life. And the reason why I say most of your life is because, let's say he dies before you. Let's say if you're a female and your husband dies before you, you'll be considered as a widow. It'll be okay for you to remarry. Now, let's say a lot of these women are fucking adulterous as hell for the most part, and they feel like if you can't pretty much give them what they want, they'll be quick to leave you, even if you pop them or whatever the case is. Like, they will want to leave you because you're not as financially, let's say, like, certain changes in your finances happen, right, and you're going through a little hardships or whatever, but you're able to, like, put food on the table and stuff like that. Because a lot of these women, they feel like they're expensive, and they feel like you're supposed to be able to buy them X, Y, and Z, take them to vacation, you know? And it's like, it's usually the way they act. It's like they're not even worth, taking them out any damn where, pretty much, blessing them like that, you know? And it's like, a lot of these women, they just usually have those high expectations. and they want to divorce you if they feel like you can't meet their financial expectations. You know? I remember that time I was watching one of Apostle Har's videos, right? And it was like a live stream. I remember he mentioned that. No, it wasn't a live stream. It was like one of the videos where he was out on the highways and byways. Yeah. And he mentioned that, many of these women, you know, they will lose their virginity at such an early ass age. And yeah, they fucking by the time of, college, or college is way worse. They probably reached about like over double digit body counts, like somewhere around there. And it's disgusting seeing that, because you know how much body fluids of other men are inside them? Yeah. And that's the thing. And women, they can't like that. They can't get that out of them. That's why they act like the guys that Salakia, that was a stupid ass motorcycle noise. But they act like the same guys that they get popped by. And if you look up the term microchimerism, that's what it is. And pretty much like a lot of these women, they're not what you call it. They're not, when most of the time when you see a woman out there, they're not really a virgin for the most part. Many of these women have been dealt with. When you look at them, you'll be surprised if you walk across one. But just because like they're not a virgin doesn't really necessarily mean that they're not sincere. Because you still have some that had, let's say, some piece of shit guys, some guys that put them away. Sometimes, some cases might happen like that. Because believe it or not, you do have some women that have made some mistakes, but it's all, in the end of the day, it's how sincere they are for the most part. But men in the ancient world, they would usually date women that were virgins. They would go for that a lot. Yeah. So they didn't really like widow woman like that, because they knew they had the truth, and they knew about certain things that a lot of these people in this world doesn't really know. Because back then, when they had the truth, they would know that, why adultery is a sin, and why that shit is completely going off. So yeah. And pretty much when you look at a lot of these people out here, like I met Apostle Tahar, he mentioned a video like about how, like, when it's coming to these women nowadays at such a young age, they will lose their virginity. And he mentioned, like, if she's pretty much the age of 20 or whatever, or in her late teens, and she says she a virgin, unless that bitch in a fucking coma, yeah. For her to be a virgin, she will have to either, like Apostle Tahar said, be in a coma, or she would probably have to have some sort of illness, like some mutation or so. Honestly, from what I'm saying, adding on to what Apostle Tahar said from that video, she will have to fucking have some type of mutation, some deformity of some sort. Yeah, it'll have to be that for her to be a virgin, for the most part, from what we see. Because Esau has an influence with his social media and his his mass media influences, and even throughout films that you see, you mostly see the adultery and the what you call it, the entertainment industry, how they push out that, what you call it, it's not only adultery, but they also push out that basically that type of spirit where they have women to be promiscuous as well, dating multiple men, flirting with multiple men, and having her to be on top of a man, basically, and having men to fight over her and shit like that. And that's completely wicked, because if anything, a woman is supposed to be competing for a man, And then they make it look like it's wicked for you to even think that way, and they call it toxic masculinity. But you see, for feminism, right? When a woman is like that, she got nothing but a bunch of females supporting her, and then you got simps that think that it's a good idea. So it's really fucking insane if you was to take on the ways of this world, you know? And fucking, but you best believe that simps are the fucking worst. And this is the stuff that they, they will pretty much say that this is a rape doctrine and all this other shit. People talking shit about this. Johanna called me a fucking pussy because I told him this over the phone. Man, he's thinking that this is a wrong thing. That's because Johanna's a baby. That's why. This is the milk of the scriptures, and he can't even understand something like this and accept this. So much for being a fucking, what, 20 plus or 30 plus years in the truth, and you can't teach something like this? Come on, man. But yet you have youngins in the truth, such as me, that could teach things like this, that understands the milk. Come on. You know? But that's it on that. I don't want to make the video too long. But I hope I made the lesson edifying. Let's give all glory, praise, and honor to Adonai, Yahweh, Bashem, Shamalak, Yahweh, Bashem, Kakadash. The honors of apostles and elders, great millstone, peace, I teach, hope for elect. Yahweh, Bashem, Yashah, Shalak, Yam, Adawam, Yam, Wa, Go, Yam, Wa, Abba, Shalom.